Every field has a handful of people who didn't just study the territory, they mapped it while they were standing in it. My guest today is one of them. Robert Waggoner has been lucid dreaming since 1975. That's 50 years and more than 1,000 lucid dreams of going to a place most people only visit by accident. He's a past president of the International Association for the Study of Dreams, and for 2 decades, he co edited the Lucid Dreaming Experience, which is the only publication in the world devoted entirely to lucid dreaming. He wrote Lucid Dreaming Gateway to the Inner Self, and with Caroline McCready, Lucid Dreaming Plain and Simple. He's taught lucid dreaming on 4 continents. But here's why I'm so excited to talk to him today. Most of the conversation about lucid dreaming stops at control, fly, change the scene, or do what you want. But Robert went the other direction. He started asking the dream questions out loud, and getting back answers that seemed to know more than he did. He took the thing everyone treats as a playground and asked what's actually awake in there. That's the frontier I really care about, so I'm honored to have him here. Robert, welcome.
Oh, thanks. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I came to lucid dreaming myself, not out of curiosity or for fun. I had a surgery in 2000. I no, well, I had a surgery in 2013. That's right, the 2013, which really changed my world and just my life, everything. And as you can see, like it has, stayed with me until like I haven't fully recovered. So that was really my motivation. Um, After my surgery for 2 years, I was like in the medical system trying to like the different kinds of rehabilitations, acupuncture, and all of that. The doctors, I explored all the avenues for recovery, and after 2 years, not get recovering the way I wanted, um, I it kind of forced me into like looking into different ways and like forced me into looking within. Like, is there, can I do something? Can I expand my consciousness? And I just got, it was, I think by total accident. It was so, I don't even remember what was the instant that lucid dreaming came to my radar. I don't remember. But I was so fascinated to just hear that, you always grow up reading fantasy, magical stuff, and then it actually exists in real life. Like you can actually reach the fantasy land, and it was so fascinating that people tried healing there. So I made it my mission to, really figure this out. So I really spend a lot of time and practice trying to do it. It took me actually 2 years to have my first lucid dream. It was very difficult. Like at some point, I was like asking myself if I was like if it's real, if it's not, I don't know if it's even possible. And then I dropped into it one time by accident. It was a very very short lucid dream. Where I just, I just suddenly I felt like I'm coming out of a screen, and my dream like became, and then I found myself in this. I think my brain made me, and then at that time I remember like, oh my god, I finally did it, I'm lucid. And then my brain suddenly created this, like, avatar like um planet scene. You know how you seen like avatar, like rocks in the air and stuff like that. And I went through a very short fly, and just I was so excited. I woke up very shortly, like, but it was my very first lucid dream. It was so pretty. Despite my tries, like I haven't succeeded yet in healing myself in a lucid dream, just because my lucid dreams, I drive into them very, very good. Like I think I've got that part right. But just stabilizing them and staying there enough to actually do something, It's very challenging for me, and I haven't gotten through it. Yeah, so that's how I came to lucid dreaming, my passion for healing, and I 100% believe that that's the path for me. Like, I think healing is truly possible, and actually, that's why I created my YouTube channel to try different methods, talk to different people, the elders of the field, the masters of the field, and just figure it out and put it on public for everyone to also see. And hopefully, that will be one example that can inspire. I wanted to ask you, just as a starter, what does a lucid dream actually feel like versus a normal dream? And what does a crossover for you feel like the crossover from the dream to lucid dream, and how that has evolved, if it did, through the years?
Right. Yeah, a wonderful series of questions. You know, um, I taught myself how to lucid dream back in 1975. Um, I was reading a book by Carlos Castaneda called Journey to Ixtlan. And so he's a UCLA graduate student in anthropology and wanted to study psychoactive plants. And so he meets this shaman, Don Juan. And in this book, his shamanic teacher suggests to him that he could become aware in dreaming by basically finding his hands. And so there wasn't a technique, so I just invented my own technique because I knew about the power of suggestion. And within 3 nights, I had my first consciously induced lucid dream. And so in that lucid dream, I actually did some experiments. I wanted to feel what's that nearby wall? Does it feel like it should? Or does it feel dreamy, just like made out of fog or cotton candy? And so, lucidly aware, I reached over and touched the nearby wall, and it felt exactly like you would expect a cool, nubby concrete wall to feel like. And so, I was really surprised at when you think about lucid dreaming, oftentimes it seems as real as waking world. It seems incredibly real. And in fact, that's one of the problems for people who are starting on the lucid dreaming path. Oftentimes they become lucidly aware and they start exploring, but then they come upon a situation and it seems so real that they just go along with it and then they just return to regular dreaming. So one of the things I learned early on is how you have to maintain your lucid awareness. First, it helps to stabilize the lucid dream, and then you can go explore. But you have to maintain that kind of conscious thread. But so what I would say is lucid dreaming feels as real as what we're in right now. This waking dream, if you'd like to call it that. Um, but what I also realized as I went along is that in lucid dreaming, the mind was so important because your thoughts were connected to what you would experience, your beliefs, expectations, your focus, intent was all part of everything in there. And so you have to remember back in 1975, there wasn't an internet that you could get onto and find out, are
That's
other
right.
people doing this? I was all by myself. I was a kid growing up in the middle of Kansas. And so I had to learn by doing, I had to learn by exploring. And I'm so grateful that that occurred to me because I was basically pretty much uninfluenced by anyone or anybody else out there. I
Mhm.
was just kind of my own self-explorer and kind of seeing uh, what I experienced along the way. So that was kind of the beauty of it. But I did want to say that one of the interesting things is in our culture, we kind of devalue dreaming. You know,
Yes.
every night we spend about 23% of the night in dreaming. But so that means that by the time you're 24 years old, you've already spent 2 entire years in dreaming. By the time you're 48, you've spent 4 entire years in dreaming. But what do we know about dreaming? We know so very little about it. Many people just quit recalling their dreams at all. And so if you spent 2 years in Japan, you'd know about the customs, the culture, the language, the food. You'd know a lot about it. But but by age 24, we've spent 2 years in dreaming and know so little about it. So it's kind of like a blue ocean. it's a place where there's still a lot to be discovered and a lot to be figured out, and that's why I wrote my first book, Lucid Dreaming: Gateway to the Inner Self.
That's right. Really, I didn't care about dreaming before my surgery at all, at all. Like, yeah, what's the point? Like, it's fascinating for me. I only cared about it once something bad happened, like something traumatic happened to my brain. I started like, so it's I hope that people don't have to go through a traumatic event to realize their dreams are important. And I'm just curious, what is the crossover feel like for you? So for me, it's like a shoot of energy or something up my spine to the top of my head. Like when I realized that oh, this is a dream. Like there is something, an energy up to my head, and then suddenly the dream, like if I get too excited, it will like spin and go dark. So how is it for you?
Right. So that's interesting. Um, Normally, what happens when I become lucidly aware is often I begin to have kind of a sense of euphoria or kind of energy. Now I don't have any sensation of anything moving up my spine or anything happening in my head. But what I have instead is kind of this sense of I'm going to call it self enlargement. that
Mm,
that prior to understanding that I was in a dream, I'm just kind of going along as my normal self. But suddenly when I realize, oh, this is a dream, then I have this kind of new energy, this kind of new sense. And
mm,
so that's normally how it got expressed to me. A lot of lucid dreamers also mentioned that after they wake from a lucid dream, they have this sense of kind of an afterglow of this kind of greater sense of their self. So that's how I would say it normally occurs to me. In some types of lucid dreams, it feels like I'm entering a new space. So
mm,
there's a type of lucid dreaming called wake initiated lucid dreaming, where you move from the waking state into the lucid dream. And sometimes it's like, oh, there's the dream, and now I gotta pull myself into the lucid dream to be
wow.
fully within the lucid dream. So, so there are some interesting, experiences like that. But I did wanna say, for anybody out there listening, in my very first consciously induced lucid dream, I did something that Don Juan, Carlos Castaneda's teacher, said not to do, and that was I stared at something fixedly in the lucid dream. So think in a normal dream, we normally have rapid eye movement. But
Mm,
in this book, Journey to Ixalan, his shamanic teacher tells him not to stare at anything fixedly. And I began to do that in my very first consciously induced lucid dream. And so it's like the lucid dream began to shake. It was like
mm,
it was shaking, and then I realized, oh, I've got to stop doing that. I'm going to collapse the dream. And so Don Juan's suggestion was look back at your hands to renew the power of dreaming. And so I looked back at my hands to stop the collapse from occurring. But basically, I had to avert my eyes. There's a fair number of things that you have to be a little bit careful that you don't do in a lucid dream because it's much more likely to lead to the collapse. But you can stabilize the lucid dream even when it looks like it's getting ready to fall apart. You can spin around. Sometimes people do that, and suddenly a new lucid dream scene occurs. Some people close their eyes and then they open their eyes, and a new lucid dream scene appears. So there's various things you can do, but you're right. You've got to understand all of this as you begin to explore lucid dreaming. Otherwise, it's going to be a long process.
yes, exactly. Um, that's great. Yeah, I knew like my hand usually gets me into a lucid dream, but I have to practice looking back to it. That's a very, very good tip. Like during the dream, just looking back at it. Um, thank you for that tip. Um, and I'm really curious about something. When you were, I read that you started lucid dreaming when you were very young. I'm curious, when you were young, were you praised for your memory, or did you have a very good memory training habit?
Yeah, you know that how that's interesting. No one's ever asked me that before. Um, so there's a couple things I think I did that actually helped my lucid dreaming. And one is juggling. When I was like 15 years old, I decided to learn how to juggle. And so you get three balls and you juggle. Later, I read that some people were thinking that perhaps juggling helped the right and left brain hemispheres engage more in greater coordination because you're doing this juggling and you can barely even think. It just almost has to become an automatic process, and you can begin to see how much better you're getting by how long you can do it or the fewer balls you drop and all that kind of stuff. But that was something curious I did as a kid. The other thing I began to do was I began to think about the power of suggestion and hypnosis. And so, probably when I was 17 or 18, I went to a hypnotist in Wichita, Kansas, the big town near the town that I grew up in, and taught myself self hypnosis. And I really love self hypnosis because I could begin to go deeper and deeper and all. But part of that does have a connection with memory. And so, in the school that system that I was in, there were teachers who made us memorize poems or memorize all the presidents of the United States: Washington Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe Adams, Jackson, Van Buren, Harrison, Tyler, Polk, Taylor, and just on and on. And for some reason, memory, I think, is an important aspect of all of this. So a lot of these things all mixed together, and I think they might have given me a little bit of an advantage as a lucid dreamer.
That's fascinating. That's actually a lot that I've been thinking about. I wonder what you think. Do you think we automatically every night lucid dream or astral project and all of this and just fail to remember them? And lucid dream is more than inducing lucidity, is more like remembering those experiences that we all naturally have. Which one do you think? Do you think we actually, when we practice lucid dreaming, we induce lucid dreaming, or we just remember them? We practice remembering them.
Yeah, yeah. There's a researcher, Stephen LaBerge, who came up with a technique, the mnemonic induction of lucid dreaming. And so a mnemonic phrase would be like, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Just kind of a memory trick to help you remember that little fact. But his idea was that it would help if we did practices that helped us remember that we wanted to lucid dream. So memory does play a role and all, but I think there's other things going on. In fact, I feel like it's much more complicated than that. There's more going on than memory. To the question, do we have out of bodies, lucid dreams, blah, blah, blah. So I would say that we definitely dream every night. About 23% of the night we spend in the dream state. But it does make me wonder about those other states before and after dreaming. When people ask me, my theory of dreaming is that it's an information exchange and an energy exchange amongst the levels of the self. So we can think of the subconscious, the unconscious, and there also might be more, which I discovered in my lucid dreams. It seems like there's an inner awareness and inner self, if you don't mind. So I think there is an information exchange. Also, there's an energy exchange, and that the 90 minutes between REM states is kind of the levels of the self have gotten this new information. Now they need to process it. Oh, and in the next 90 minutes, they're going to come back with their response. And so it's this interplay of all levels of the self to kind of help us become what I would call harmonious beings. And
Mm.
you know, I would say most people are relatively harmonious. They could be more harmonious within themselves. Sometimes you see when people through like schizophrenia or psychotic breaks become out of harmony within themselves and need to be returned to a greater sense of harmony. But anyway, we might have out of bodies every night. There's some teachers who suggest that, oh yeah, every night you have out of bodies, and basically you're connecting with deeper layers of the self in these out of bodies. Um, is there scientific evidence for that? Well, maybe, maybe not. I'm not here to talk about that. It's just to say that we really don't understand yet what's happening in sleeping and dreaming. And if we had a better idea, I think we'd see that it's actually connected to greater self experiences. But because we ignore it so much
Yeah.
and think of it as nothing, that we just haven't invested the time to know for sure.
Yeah, that's really such a mystery, right? So I was like, I think I read in a book by Robert Bruce. I don't know if you've read any of his books,
Sure.
but he was like I think if I remember correctly, he was like we automatically do this, automatically lucid dream or dream and have out of body experience, and when we wake up, those experiences like kind of mash up, and then we stitch together, we remember a stitch of both experiences. So that
Right.
was really fascinating to me, and yeah, I am afraid a bit of conscious out of body experiences. I'm always afraid.
I just want to just help the listeners kind of conceive of all this. So a lucid dream means you realize within the dream you're dreaming.
Mhm.
So you might see the Queen of England walking down the sidewalk in a bikini, and you think, wait a second, what's the Queen of England doing in my neighborhood in a bikini? Because it's January in Toronto, and they go, oh, wait a second, this is too weird. This is a dream. Okay, normally in a lucid dream, we realize we have some realization and go, oh, I'm dreaming this. This is a dream. Now, an out of body might occur when you're having like a heart attack. You're having a
Right.
heart attack, you're floating on the ceiling, you're looking down at your body being operated on, um, but nowhere in there do you realize within a dream you're dreaming. Or an out of body might occur, like sometimes when I was a teenager, as I was falling to sleep, I'd hear this humming and buzzing around my head and body. And I think, what's going on? I'm just trying to fall asleep. And then suddenly I'm viewing the bedroom from 6 feet above my bed. And so you know, nowhere in there do you realize within a dream you're dreaming. So they're technically different by definition. These two experiences are different. Now, when it becomes difficult is like in this experience, which happened to me probably 20 years ago. I'm sitting across from a Native American guy, and we're having a very deep discussion about spiritual things. And he's doing 90% of the talking, and I'm doing most of the listening. And so I realize that, oh, I, I I assume I'm in a dream, because I'm aware and it's obvious he's aware and we're having a very deep discussion. And after about 10 minutes, I look at him and I say, this is a very stable lucid dream. And he looks at me and says, this is not a lucid dream.
Uh-huh.
And so all of a sudden I realize, wait a second, this is strange because it's so abnormally stable. We're having this deep conversation and stuff. So I think sometimes in dreaming, we're actually, like Robert Bruce says, we think we had a dream, but actually it was an out of body experience that has different characteristics. But in the morning, we think of it as a dream because what happens at night? Oh, we dream. And so again, that's another reason why this is a interesting area is because there's there's dreaming, and you can report, with your eyes, you can signal in a lucid dream that, oh yeah, I'm dreaming in here, and
Mm.
people can watch all the things. But there's also other experiences that occur that I don't think science has even figured out the way to capture when those experiences are happening. So it's complicated. I guess that's what I want to say.
Yeah, definitely. I remember I usually stop. I usually, when I realize that I'm about to have an out of body experience, like there is like a boom, 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 like something vibrating, and I stop myself because I'm afraid I meet, something scary. I like lucid dreaming because I feel safe in the lucid dream. I feel like my brain keeps things safe, like keeps everything
Right,
bad away. Do
right.
you? Is that the right feeling, or am I just misunderstood?
Well, I have to agree with you. Like when I was 17 and 18, I was, beginning to have lucid dreams. Also, spontaneously, I began to have what people call out of body experiences. And I just preferred how easy and simple lucid dreaming was comparatively. You just notice something odd, you realize, "Oh, this is a dream, I'm dreaming this," and there you go, exploring, having fun, experimenting, doing whatever. Uh, OBEs, by contrast, there's a lot of energy and a lot of stuff and, is a little bit strange, and so I just kind of like, "Meh," that's not necessarily me. But I do wanna say to folks out there, there's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. If there's nothing to be afraid of. There might be, unusual situations, there might be strange experiences. Sometimes you might meet your own fear, but it's just your own projection. So there's nothing truly to be afraid of, and, I'm always happy to help people walk through that if they ever feel like they've experienced that, because sometimes we personify in the lucid dream or the dream or the OBE, we personify some of our emotions, and sometimes now we're relating to those emotions, and we don't actually realize it's a personification of our emotions. But there's ways of working with that, and one of them is very simple. Just like in a lucid dream, one time I met an angry dog, and this dog was just growling and it was right in my face, and I knew it wanted to, bite me and all this kind of stuff. But I thought, wait a second, this is a lucid dream dog. And so what I began to do in the lucid dream, I began to send that dog love and compassion and understanding. And as I sent it that kind of energy, it began to get very calmer, much calmer. And then it began to get smaller. And as I sent it more love and compassion and understanding, suddenly it turned into a dachshund like we had when I was a little kid. And I reached down and picked it up and took it flying around in the lucid dream. So what I'm saying is you can do the same thing if you meet a angry witch or a zombie. Just send it love, compassion, and what'll happen, it'll change, and all of a sudden, instead of being a zombie, it'll be your best friend from kindergarten or whatever. So again, how your mind responds in these moments really matters, and otherwise, whether an out of body or a lucid dream, there's nothing to fear, and so just stay calm and everything will work out.
That's an interesting tip, sending love. I wonder how you send love. Like you say it, "I love you," or you think it. Like how do you do that?
Yeah, it's normally as I do it, it's a feeling sense. It's kind of like a telepathically sending, if you want to think of it in that way. You're
Oh,
just sending love and compassion and understanding, and you're not denying anything, you're not ignoring or repressing anything, which will lead to a shadow. You're just sending it what it lacks, and so one of the things that I think lucid dreamers should do, if they ever, meet something aggressive, is ask it, "Who are you? Who are you?" And
oh,
oftentimes you'll hear it say, "I'm your fear of success," or "I'm your fear of failure," or "I'm your fear of this," or "I'm your whatever." And when you know what you're interacting with, oh, now it's so much easier. "Oh,
mhm.
now I'm interacting with my fear of success. Oh, what do I do about that?" Oh, I send it compassion and understanding or whatever, and you watch as you do that, you watch it change, and that's when you realize that your thoughts are connected to that dream projection, and so they're not separate. And all. So anyway, there's a lot to be said there, and that's why people like me write books on lucid dreaming.
Yeah, amazing. Now that I think it's a interesting, like when you say like projections, like it's really, I think, relevant to dream characters, right? You said that ask them who are you, like when so asking questions from characters in a dream, that's something that I have a lot of in weird experience with. Like in my first couple of lucid dreams, like I think maybe second or third one, I became lucid, tried to, stabilize my emotion. I was still very excited, which is why it was a very short lucid dream. But I entered the bar, like there was a bar, like a Western, you see in the Western movies, there is a bar. So I entered it, there was a piano, people, like the bar was full of people, like some people were like leaning against the piano, and there was a waitress carrying like a plate and, serving people. And then when they realized I came, everyone suddenly became quiet, quiet and just staring at me. Staring at it was so weird. And my dream plan at the time was to go ask why this happened to me. Like just asking them why this events like the facial paralysis, everything that happened to me. So I went to this guy on the piano and asked him why this happened to me. I was also a bit, very emotional, and then he didn't answer anything. He just looked me with contempt, sizing me, like rolling his eyes up and down, checking me out, and like I felt like contempt, or I felt dismissed, or like don't talk to me or something like that, and they didn't respond. And I went to the next character, the same thing. The next character, the same thing, and it made me a bit, uh, I woke up after it quickly, but it made me very frustrated, and I got I got a bit angry at my unconscious. I thought it would give me an answer. It would it would give me comfort and some answer. And I was very disappointed I didn't receive that answer. And actually prevented me from attempting lucid dream until I read that this is a common phenomenon, that dream characters don't respond. So I wonder what you think about that.
Right. You know, so this is an important area of lucid dreaming because all of us in our dreams have dream figures, whether it's a regular dream or a lucid dream or whatever kind of dream, we have dream figures. Now, now, oftentimes people might come from a Western view and, oh, every dream figure is a personification of something about yourself or whatever, or every dream figure is a symbol and all. So, so in lucid dreaming, we can explore and experiment with that. And like I write in my book, one thing I quickly realized is all dream figures are not created equal. Dream figures vary. You go up to a dream figure, you ask it a question, sometimes it won't even look back at you. Sometimes it'll mumble a response. Sometimes it'll say something that's so stupid or seemingly stupid that it just absolutely makes no sense. And so I began to see that there's some dream figures who are at a very what else? I'll just call it a low level of conscious engagement that they can barely engage with you. Also, sometimes we do something strange in lucid dreaming. We as lucid dreamers go up and say, "Hey, do you know this is a dream and that I'm dreaming you?" And then sometimes that dream figure will respond, "How do you know I'm not dreaming you?" And I remember one time a friend told me that this happened to them, and so the lucid dreamers, when the lucid dreamer heard that the dream figure said, "How do you know I'm not dreaming you?" The lucid dreamer said, "Well, look, I can fly," and went flying. And then the dream figure said, "Well, look, I can fly too," and it went flying around. And then they kept trying to one up each other to see, who had the most authority in the lucid dream. And at the end of it, they couldn't figure out whose lucid dream it was. So occasionally you meet those kind of dream figures that seem very aware, very conversant, and they can do basically most anything that you can do. Then you meet other dream figures who are the ones who make you become lucidly aware. They'll do something to basically prompt you or force you to become lucidly aware or encourage you to become lucidly aware. Um, I remember one time I had these dream figures and they kept playing this song over and over and over. And by the time they're on the fourth version of starting up this song again, I thought, wait a second, this is too weird. This has to be a dream. As soon as I became lucidly aware, all the dream figures started to clap and slap me on the back and congratulate me for finally getting it and becoming lucidly aware. So my point is, there's all sorts of dream figures that we're going to encounter, and it doesn't surprise me that you met some dream figures who were possibly empty or hollow. I mean,
Mhm.
they were representations of something. They were thought forms, but in terms of depth, they just didn't have any depth.
That's very interesting. I remember I was so frustrated. I felt like dismissed or something like that. But and then that's why your work is so important, because once I read other people have the same experience, I actually became embarrassed that I took it personally and got upset because it's like something that happens. So it's very very nice to read the work of people who's gone far into the field and know the way, know how things work. So that really helped me. And if I didn't read that, I would maybe stop lucid dreaming because I was really disappointed at that experience.
Right. Yeah, sometimes it's very disappointing, but other times I wanna also encourage people, sometimes you'll hear something, and at that moment, it doesn't make sense, but suddenly 6 months later, something happens in your life, and what they say that seemed to 6 months earlier seemed like a weird comment, all of a sudden, it somehow connects to your waking world, and you go, "Oh, maybe that dream figure was actually more aware than I originally thought."
Right. And also, do you think this one was also a hollow lucid dream? I was in a hotel room. I was dreaming, and then from the other corner of the room, suddenly a buff, muscular, big man started marching toward me, and I was like, "Whoa, this was a dream! This is a dream! This is a dream!" And then I became lucid, and at the same time I said, "This is a dream." The buff dream character suddenly puffed up and then became a small, a cylinder being, and then just walked out. Like, the director of the scene just said cut, and he just walked out. It was so funny. I was like laughing in my lucid dream. I like was thinking, oh, this is so funny. He just, puffed out and just left the room.
That's a wonderful experience, and that's why I think it's so important if people in that moment can remember just to ask, like, "Who are you?" or "What do you represent?" Because oftentimes you'll realize that, oh, that puffed up fellow was something really valuable and important, if you understood what it meant. I'll tell you a story. So I do this magazine, the Lucid Dreaming Experience magazine, that anyone can get for free. And we had this wonderful guy who was from the Middle East who would send in his lucid dreams. He had read my first book and was really inspired and everything. And he said one thing that happened to him, he began to have these recurring lucid dreams where the Incredible Hulk would appear.
Mm.
So he'd be lucidly aware, and then all of a sudden, one of the dream figures would start to change, and it would become the Incredible Hulk. And he was like, "Whoa, whoa, what's going on here? This is weird." And finally, it began to be a recurring kind of lucid dream where some figure in the lucid dream would become the Incredible Hulk and start chasing him. And so he reports that here's how the series ended. So he's out someplace in a crowd. Suddenly, this one person becomes the Incredible Hulk. Kareem thinks, "Oh, now I have to run away," and so he starts running away and everything. And the Incredible Hulk this time is getting much closer, much closer, much closer. And now he decides to reach out to his inner awareness, and so he calls out for his inner awareness to help him. And suddenly, what happens? A purple witch appears, and what does the purple witch do? She suddenly materializes a rope and throws the rope around Kareem. And so now he's stuck in the lucid dream, and he finally has to face the Incredible Hulk. And suddenly he hears the Incredible Hulk say the name of the company that Kareem works for and yells, "Get me out of there." And suddenly Kareem realizes, oh, that's what this is about. For the last 6 or 9 months, he realized that he'd been wanting to get out of that company because they worked him like a dog. They didn't pay him anything. But the only reason he stayed in that IT company was because he was working for an IT company. He didn't have to join the National Army. Because if
Mm,
he wasn't working for certain companies, then he'd have to join the National Army. He didn't want to do that. But once he woke up from that lucid dream, he realized that his the lucid dream or his larger awareness was basically telling him that he had to let go of working for that company. And so he said he was kind of afraid because if he didn't get a new job within 3 months in the same sort of industry, he'd have to go into the armed services. And so he said he put in his resignation, and then, like, within 6 weeks, he had a new job that paid him twice as much better. It was a much better culture. He could flourish. He could use his creative ideas and everything. And of course, the Incredible Hulk never came back. So a lot of times, I just want people to understand that that it kind of looks like it's becoming a lucid nightmare. But what did the Purple Witch do? The Purple Witch made him stop running. And what does our reptilian mind tell us to do? Oh, we either fight or we flight, we run. And what did the Purple Witch make him do? Stop running. Listen to what the figure, the representation of his, fear and anger and repressed energies in his current work job, uh, it it just told him, "You have to get out of there." And a lot of times on a conscious level, we want to, but our fear stops us. Our fear, "Oh gosh, I don't wanna go into the army. I don't wanna do all that stuff. It's, 2 or 3 years in the army. I don't wanna be one of those people." Anyway, so it kinda shows you the beauty of lucid dreaming and also the beauty of what I call the inner awareness, because that's why I call my first book Lucid Dreaming: Gateway to the Inner Self. I began to see that as I went along, there's more to lucid dreaming than just interacting with dream figures like we're kind of socialized to do. That actually, if you're smart, you can interact with your own larger awareness and kind of
mm.
get its support and help.
That's a just fascinating experience. Um, the guy had it's amazing, and I actually love your first book. I think that is one of those books that I will come back to and read multiple times as I progress into my journey into lucid dreaming, because more things just make sense as I experience it myself. So that's really really a wonderful book. And so sorry, I'm just looking at my questions. I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, one thing I do wanna say, so I taught myself how to lucid dream in 1975, and so there it was is like 30 years into lucid dreaming, and I knew how amazing it was and how there's all these avenues that no one's talking about that we could explore. And I asked all my good friends who were great lucid dreamers, I said, "Are you gonna write a book and explain all this other stuff that you can do in lucid dreams other than fly around and have fun?" And all of them said no. And I thought, well, screw it. If no one else is going to write it, I'm going to write a book that explains how you can access creativity, how you can use lucid dreaming for emotional health and physical health and promoting or improving that. I'm going to write a book that shows how you can engage in inner awareness. You can do spiritual practices and all sorts of things in lucid dreams that no one had been writing about. People kind of hint at them and bring up Buddhist dream yoga, and Buddhist dream yoga, is one of the 6 paths to enlightenment and all that kind of stuff. But no one was writing about it, and I was like, I I'm not going to leave this world without writing a book and helping people see the expanded nature of lucid dreaming, because so often in our society, we're taught that dreams are nothing. They're imaginings, they're fantasies, they're
Exactly.
whatever. and people just ignore them or just kind of downplay them. And I wanted to show people, oh, in lucid dreaming, there's so much more you can do, but it helps first to understand the principles, and then once you understand the principles, then you can take it even deeper. So thank you for saying you enjoyed my first book because it was really
It's a
based on a lot of
classic. It's a
experience.
classic.
Oh, well,
It is
thank
a
you, thank you,
classic book. It's
thank you.
amazing. Like, I will definitely it's something that I will have to go back to and read again. Just, and I'm really grateful that you did so because otherwise I would have quit lucid dreaming once that dream character ignored me.
The beautiful thing, I hear from people all around the world, and they just tell me, "Oh my gosh, I read your book, and I was able to do this or that or whatever," and it's been so fun. I've been thanked so often from people who've seen just how you can use lucid dreaming in a whole new way.
Yes, you are a map maker and amazing. And I'll just ask you one question. One of my friends asked when I told her that I'm talking to you today. Is lucid dreaming like I told her that I don't believe lucid dreaming has any harms, but what do you think? Does lucid dreaming will it like cause any hallucinations or any adverse effects?
Yeah. There was an interesting study by this woman, Ursula Voss, who on occasion studies lucid dreams. And here's what she did: she went back to a school in Germany that had 694 students, ages 6 to 19, and she just had a very simple question: Have you ever become aware in a dream that you're dreaming? And from this group, she found about 51% had already had a lucid dream. But what was crazy is that little 6-year olds could report a lucid dream. No one had taught them, no one had suggested they do it. It just happened naturally, spontaneously, organically. In fact, if I read her survey correct, about 25% of the 8-year olds had already had a lucid dream. And so to people who are concerned that, oh, is there something dangerous? Is there something I gotta be on the lookout for? I just want to tell you, it happens naturally, spontaneously, organically, and if little 8-year olds are doing it just naturally, and no one's even explained to them that there is such a thing, you know, then it's part of our organic system. It's just part of our thing, just like our body digests. Do I have to help my body digest? No, it does it unconsciously. Do I have to help my body dream? No, dreaming just happens naturally. Lucid dreaming happens naturally. So there's really nothing fundamentally to be concerned about. Now, the only exception to that would be if a person started to have just tons of lucid dreams such that, they were starting to get confused about, what's happening in waking reality and what's happening in dream reality and which reality are they in. Then, I write in my book that here's the one thing that I would do if I was that kind of person. I would get back in nature. I would go outside. I would get out of your home, get out of your, being on electronic media or watching TV. I'd get outside. I'd be in the sunshine. I would touch things, feel things. I would reconnect with nature because nature is our natural connection. And so if any of this practice ever starts to seem too dreamy or too wacky, then the antidote is returning to nature. And so but for 99.9% of the people, that's never going to happen. But if anybody does have a concern, that's what you have to do.
And do you think like people with neurological issues, let's say like ADHD, um, or stroke or something, will that affect their lucid dreaming, or lucid dreaming is not really affected by that? Like having more often lucid dreams or less often lucid dreams?
Yeah, I can't really say one way or the other. I mean, I can't really speak to that. There are some people who are like who have autism or Asperger's, and some of these people are extraordinary lucid dreamers. I'm sure there's a whole nother other group that aren't, but some of the ones I've met. And why? Because they can focus and concentrate very deeply, and sometimes lucid dreaming is a matter of focus and concentration and kind of developing your intent. One thing I would say for everybody, no matter who you are, is that a lot of it has to come down to your own personal intent and all. You know, if you if you sense some sort of value in it and can see it and all, then you can stay on the trail. But if you're just playing around and oh, lucid dreaming is nothing, doesn't have any meaning, then you know you have 5 or 6 lucid dreams naturally, and just doesn't mean anything. So boom, off you go. But anyway, people who read my books go, okay, now I see the potential here, and so now I see why um, people should play around with this some and take it deeper.
How about with age? Do you think with age, like you said, that like kids have naturally lucid dream, but when we age, does that affect like reducing the number of lucid dreams?
Right. It's interesting. One thing I've realized in lucid dreaming is that our beliefs are very important. And so I don't want to give anyone negative beliefs that, oh yeah, as you get older, blah blah blah, your dreaming falls off or your lucid dreaming falls off. I don't think that necessarily has to be the case. One of the beautiful things about being young is our desire to explore and experiment. I remember I had a 30-day class of kids who were ages 6 to 14 whose parents had signed them up for this lucid dreaming course. It was the funnest class in the world. Why? Because I would suggest to them, oh, do this, and they would actually do it. They wouldn't sit there and, oh, do I philosophically believe with this? Oh, what would Carl Jung say about this? Oh, is this bad for my health? Oh, is a demon going to come get me? They won't say any of that stupid crap. They just like, oh, this guy told me that tonight in my dreams I can do X, Y, Z, and I can become aware. And once I'm aware, I can do this. And the next week we'd get together, and darned if half of them hadn't done it. It's because they didn't have any fear. They didn't have any philosophical, oh, don't do that. That's bad for you. They didn't have all these weird concerns and issues. And so that's the only problem with getting old is that sometimes you've developed this whole line of stuff you've accepted over the years. And now instead of supporting you along the path, it actually is hindering the path. And so anyway, that's what I would say is sometimes why it's easier to do as a young person is you just don't have all that junk in the way. But that said, I remember one time I was doing a 30-day online class. This woman who was a disciple of Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche said she had come to my class because other people in her group had told her that I explained it in simple Western ways, and so she came to my group. In her first 30 days, she had her first 3 lucid dreams, and in her final lucid dream, she accomplished something fantastic that just blew her mind. And so, so again, if what I liked about her, she was a meditator and she had developed a stable mind. And also, she believed, and also, she had a powerful intent that she wanted to accomplish in her lucid dreaming. And so, by the third lucid dream, she had accomplished it. And the
Wow.
first one, she did exactly like you mentioned. She got so excited, she woke up.
Mm.
And I mean, that's just what all of us beginners do. We just get excited. So, so yeah, I mean, it might vary, things might vary according to age, but a lot of it can be explained by having our mind full of ideas that aren't supportive, that are actually hindering our process.
Thank you for the tips. Steady mind. Yes, I actually am trying to build a brain computer interface that helps achieve that. And I'm excited to put some ideas on YouTube later.
Oh, good.
Um, um, Sorry for the pause. I'm just looking
Yeah.
at my
No, take your
questions.
time. No worries.
Okay, now inner awareness, the spine of your work. Um, so would you just get me to the first time that your dream answered back and how that felt?
Right. Just to explain to everyone, in 1975, I taught myself how to lucid dream. In January of 1981, I read Psychology Today magazine, which Stephen LaBerge explained how he had experimentally validated lucid dreaming so everyone could see it and replicate it. And so that made me very happy. So it was in the 1980s, and that's when this first kind of onrush of, oh my gosh, lucid dreaming is really real, and all people were all sort of excited about it. So I read in this magazine that there was this lucid dream explorers group, and every month they'd have a goal to achieve in a lucid dream. And so I joined, and I'm so glad I joined because this group went on for 3 years, and there were so many times when in a lucid dream I had to stop, stabilize the lucid dream. Okay, what was this month's goal? Oh yeah, this is what it is. And then I would try to enact the goal in the lucid dream, and I'd wake up and write down my lucid dream and send it in to the organizers and all. So I was part of this experimental group, and 1 month it was find out what your dream figures represent. And so I thought, "Oh, this will be easy, that's not a big deal." So I became lucidly aware, followed a woman into an office. Now there's 3 women over there, and there's a gentleman in a three-piece suit with a gold watch, and I remembered the goal, find out what your dream figures represent. I walked up to the older man, and I just asked him, "Excuse me, what do you represent?" And suddenly the strangest thing happened. From high above him, a voice boomed out, "The acquired characteristics." And so
Oh.
I sat there and thought, well, that really doesn't make total sense. And so I looked up into space and asked back, the acquired characteristics of what? And then suddenly, is like that voice had to think about it. Then it boomed back a response, "The acquired characteristics of the happy giver." And I thought, okay, I've achieved my goal. I found out what this dream figure represents. It represents the acquired characteristics of the happy giver. And so I decide to wake up and I write down that dream. And that day, the day before, I remembered that, oh, there was something that connected with that response. I was on a business trip in Chicago, and I met this woman who, at the end of our meeting, she told me the only reason people gave to her nonprofit was to get their names in her annual report. And she was just so kind of mean and nasty about it. I In my mind, I thought, "Oh, the Lord loves a happy giver," because she was such an unhappy receiver. I thought, "Come on, be a happy receiver." So anyway, um, so I realized, oh, so that response actually connected with a little bit of Dave residue, that here's a representation of the happy giver. But then I began to think, well, wait a second. Why did the dream figure not respond? Why did this voice from above boom out a response? And then I began to think, well, wait a second. Is there an awareness behind the dream? Is is there is the unconscious kind of actually consciously aware? Is there kind of like an inner self behind the dream that you could ignore the dream figures and just ask a question to? And as I drove around that day thinking about that, I thought, I'm gonna start playing around with this. I'm gonna start asking questions in my lucid dreams, not of a dream figure, but I'll just look up and, hey, lucid dream, show me something important for me to see. And when I began to do that, suddenly either the entire lucid dream would change in response to my question, or this non-visible voice would respond and boom out a response. And I became blown away that here in a lucid dream, you could apparently interact with a different version of yourself, or a responsive inner awareness. I'll guess I'll put it at that. And that's why I call my first book Lucid Dreaming Gateway to the Inner Self. discovering the inner self in 1985, 10 years after I started lucid dreaming, was really a watershed moment for me.
That's fascinating. And I actually, as a person who, that came very close, interacting with that inner self, um, I thought to ask you, what do you think about ego? Because when we come lucid in a dream, I believe like we take our ego there, and then your ego, like you met your inner self, and like I'm thinking about what my position is about ego, and I read a lot about the ego has to get dissolved or whatever, like has to disappear or something like that. But then when I had my first astral projection, this time I don't know what the conditions were simultaneously such that I wasn't afraid. And I felt the vibration and I focused on a point on the ceiling and just zoomed it in and felt myself out of it, out of my body, like came out of my body and then went exploring. I was very surprised that I was not afraid because I'm usually very afraid. And I saw an entity like it looked like a white Pomeranian dog, but a bit foxy, like a bit like long tail and stuff like that. And it saw me and it got very happy. You are here, and we started jumping up and down together, celebrating that I found finally made it. Like it was celebrating with me that I finally made it. And after that experience, I got up and I was thinking, maybe the subconscious wants to partner with the ego, not to dissolve it. Like, what do you think? What's your opinion about the ego?
Right. You know, all the levels of the self, if they work in harmony, everything goes super smoothly. But here's an example of a lucid dreamer where this wasn't going on right. And so I know this lucid dreamer, actually a very nice guy, but he was one of these people who wanted to be discovered by Hollywood. Because if he'd be discovered by Hollywood, his life would be great and he'd be famous and people would want to come and visit him and interact with him because he'd be so famous and so cool and so great. And I remember one time he told me in a lucid dream, his grandmother appeared. And so he became lucidly aware, actually seeing his grandmother. He goes, wait a second, grandma passed away 5 years ago. This has to be a dream. I'm dreaming this. And so grandmother sat down and talked to him and said, look, you have so many skills and so many abilities, but they aren't connected with Hollywood. And basically, she sat there and said, you have to develop your true skills and your true abilities and not get caught up in this ego wish of being a Hollywood star. And she basically gave it to him straight. And when he woke up, I think it really changed him as a person. So that's the issue with the ego. Sometimes the ego gets kind of hypermania and thinks that somehow they're going to be discovered even though they live in a little village in Wisconsin or something, and they're going to go to Hollywood and everyone's going to love them and give them money and they'll have a yacht and the whole thing. I mean, that's the ego talking. The conscious self, though, I'm going to differentiate the ego from the conscious self. So the ego is kind of the persona, the mask that we kind of wear and relate to, the world and others. The conscious self, though, is kind of the part of the self that's kind of trying to think this all through, like, 7 times 5 is 35, that's not really a belief or an idea. That's just kind of one of these things. And the conscious self is just really kind of there in the background, trying to apprehend things correctly, respond to things thoughtfully, manage things, deal with things, and all. And so when we do become lucidly aware, oftentimes we have the concerns of the conscious self and the ego are there, and the energies of the conscious self and ego are there. And so it's not surprising. I don't think we have to. ignore the ego or ignore the conscious self. I think that's actually to our detriment. I don't think we need to kill the ego. The ego's part of the natural system we got going on. But it's important for the ego to understand that there is an inner awareness that can help give information and all. Uh, and so sometimes the ego gets so afraid because it doesn't have any feeling of any sense of support. And when the ego realizes that, oh no, the unconscious, the inner self is actually there as a foundation of support and assistance, then sometimes it can let go of its fear and concerns and actually begin to um, grow from that point on.
Yeah, that's right. I sense that subconscious wants to become friends with the ego, and it gets excited when it makes, some
Right.
progress.
What, do you mind me asking, you said it was a Pomeranian dog who appeared in your lucid
Yeah,
dream?
yeah, it was a Pomeranian
You're
dog.
out about it. Yeah. But, when you think of a Pomeranian dog, what does that mean to you? What's does is that something you had as a kid growing up in your family?
No, no, I actually have, my first dog is still with us. He's a Shih Tzu. And when I saw it, at first I thought it's my dog in my dream because I thought it's astral projection. So maybe it's amazing in astral projection. I completely had my memory and everything. It was like
Yeah.
really me outside. Because in lucid dreaming, sometimes it's so touch and go. The identity is a bit touch and go. At first, but then I looked more clearly and saw no, it's not my dog. My dog is brown and white, but this one was all white. And then I saw it's Pomeranian. My uncle used to have a Pomeranian, but he was not white. His Pomeranian was brown, and his Pomeranian was one of those with a lot of attitude. Like whenever he would see us, he was like barking all over. But yeah, yeah, at first I thought it was my dog, but it wasn't. It was,
Yeah.
a white Pomeranian, and it was a bit foxy, like it has a sharp nose, like a long tail. But he was so happy to see me. It was so interesting that he celebrated with me that, "Yeah, you finally made it." And that gave me the idea that maybe subconscious really wants to be friends with the ego and be partner together. So after that, I kind of like when I read or see people talk about dissolving the ego and getting rid of the ego. Look, I'm thinking maybe not. That's not what we should do. Um, and you put it amazingly. Like there is even a separation. I didn't know that. Like I didn't separation between the conscious and the ego. Like there are layers, and yeah, that's
Right.
very interesting.
The layers are kind of interlocked, and all, and the unconscious oftentimes comes to us in the waking world as intuitions or impulses. Like you might be sitting there and think, I wonder what's happening to my friend James, and then 3 seconds later your phone rings and, oh, it's James, and it's kind of like, whoa, how did that happen that I just suddenly thought of James? And inside this impulse came up from my unconscious mind, and now it's been validated in the waking world. So things are, we kind of have to differentiate them to kind of talk about them, but they're all kind of part of the same whole. It's just that we have to kind of differentiate their functions so we kind of understand when one part isn't functioning very well. And so you know I, you know, it's much better to understand the ego and harmonize with it and get it to see things accurately, instead of, like, think of an ego who's paranoid. You know, everything's a threat. Oh, here comes the mailman. He's coming to the door. Oh my God, it's a threat. Yeah, and you can think of all the crazy stuff that happens because sometimes the ego doesn't really think about beliefs very deeply and begins to accept, just wild beliefs like, oh, the postman is a threat. Oh, my neighbors are watching me. Oh, those people are spying on me, and just think what that does to the whole self organism. I mean, it's really tragic what happens, but if the unconscious self is always trying to rewrite the boat, is always trying to make things work, but a lot of times the conscious self isn't listening, and the ego self is just letting these fantasies kind of take over, just like the guy who was going to be discovered and be a Hollywood star and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, we need to understand how they function before we decide to, get rid of the ego or anything like that. First, let's understand what we're dealing with before we start making those kind of big statements and all.
Exactly. And I'm so excited to be talking to you because you're the closest person to this idea, right? You touched and felt it. It's amazing that, you share your experience and just spreading the word out there. I think it's just I'm just so grateful. It's hard to put into words.
But you're
uh,
right. It was 1985. That's when I realized that there's an inner awareness, and I began to explore how deep is its knowing, how creative is it. With like here would be an example. I'd become lucidly aware, and one time I announced, "Hey, dream," and by that I mean, "Hey, inner awareness. Hey, inner awareness. Show me my life as if it was a painting." And then suddenly in the sky above me is this kind of 90-foot by 30-foot painting
oh.
that was created in a microsecond. And it's so fascinating and all filled in. I was just like, think of the amount of creativity that would have to exist to make this happen in a microsecond. That's kind of when you realize that this inner awareness, the creativity is so vast, is so incredible, and a lot of times, there's Nobel Prize winners who attribute their Nobel Prize idea, the solution came to them in a dream.
Mm.
And even the co-founder of Google, Larry Page, if you listen to the 2013 commencement address at the University of Michigan, he shares how when he was a PhD student in computer science, one night the idea for basically what became Google came to him, and he jumped out of bed and he spent hours writing it down. I mean, people don't understand that when you begin to connect with this, how powerful the result can be. And so if you want to have big dreams, you got to have big thoughts, because all of a sudden you'll start thinking and asking within, how could this happen? How could this be? How could this happen? How could this be? And finally, your inner self will say, oh, I'm getting that message. So I'll give the dream, I'll give the spontaneous impulse, I'll give the intuition to answer that. But if we don't understand that we have these parts of the self and how to relate to them or how to use them, then it's really an unfortunate thing. All of us have a subconscious, all of us have an unconscious. How are we using it? We're not trained how to use it. We don't think about using it. We use it naturally, but when you start to realize, oh, I could actually use this to help myself, th- then then you start to see the benefit of it more correctly and more immediately. So
Exactly. At this point in my life, after going through that traumatic event and my surgery, I think there is nothing more important in life than this. Because when we are dead, we don't take our degrees or money or whatever, but we are taking our consciousness and self awareness for sure. So I think what's more important than that?
that's a wonderful way of thinking about it, because you're right. I do think that the skills that we learn while we're awake, and or dreaming, that these skills that we learn actually um, kind of help support our total continued growth in wherever we find ourselves next. What's come to me as a result of all my explorations is right now, people ask, what's the meaning of life? And what I have to say is my inner awareness has shown me that we're involved in an educational system, and and we're here to learn, especially what happens in lucid dreams. We learn how we create things, how we create experiences and begin to explore. And we need to learn that we're part of something larger, and we're part of an educational system, and so so you're right. The value is in education. It's not how much money you have or how many degrees you have or that kind of thing. Um, uh, Part of the value is educating ourselves, and then also I think expressing what we have in our own personal life, so we can show the world that, oh yeah, this is for real. This isn't just make believe or a joke. Yeah.
I actually have tons of questions for you about the afterlife. But before that, I have to go to the healing part of your work because that's like the mission of my life. Try to heal myself through expanding my consciousness. And I think lucid dreaming is the key, really. Um, I actually believe in lucid dreaming more than out of body. I think lucid dreaming is more important. I think at this stage of my thinking, I think lucid dreaming is more important. Uh, and Um, so how would you like let's say someone like me ask you how to like what if you could like walk me through how would you do a healing on yourself when you become lucid and learn to stabilize the dream, what are the steps to implement like to heal yourself in a lucid dream?
Right. So so my first book has a chapter on physical healing in lucid dreams. And I just want to explain that there I include about a dozen examples of success. But I also, if you're a careful reader, you'll see I give two or three examples of failure. And I show you can see very clearly why exactly the person failed and all. So in the first part of my book, I'm bringing up the psychological principles of creating our experience within the lucid dreams. So it's all connected to belief, expectation, focus, intent, will or emotions, and also the larger awareness. So you've got to understand all of that once you get to trying to physically heal in a lucid dream. So here's what I tell people who understand all that stuff and now they're ready to try. First, um, one thing you want to do is figure out your plan of action in the waking state. Let's say you became lucid tonight, you stabilized the lucid dream, didn't get too excited or anything, and then you remembered, oh, yeah, I wanted to heal my bad knee or whatever it is. Oftentimes at that moment, if you haven't created a plan, you can't figure out a plan in the lucid dream state. You're like, you look down at your knee and like, oh yeah, it's doing great. Why do I need to heal my knee or something? Or you'll just kind of like, oh yeah, how do you do that? And you'll think of some stupid way of approaching it. So the first thing is, if anyone's approaching this, figure out in the waking state how you're going to do it. Um, in my book, I give 9 or 10 examples of successful healings because I want to show people the various ways that people went about it. So, and the reason I do that is because we're all our own unique selves. Some people are visualizers, so they can visualize a ball of healing light and they can put it over their bad knee, intending for it to be healed and watch their knee glow with that energy. And then they wake up, and then in the morning, oh, they can walk up and down the stairs without any pain. And they're like, oh, my knee is healed. So some people are visual. Other people are like kind of word focused and intent focused. So, like my friend Ed Kellogg would do this, he would memorize a chant. Now from my hands with power divine, the healing light on my knee will shine. Now from my hands with power divine, the healing light on my knee will shine. And so I asked my friend Ed Kellogg, I said, why do you do this chant? And he said, I encapsulate my intent within this chant. Now from my hands with power divine, the healing light on my knee will shine. So when I become lucid, all I have to do is remember that chant. It encapsulates all my intent. I put out my hands. Normally I see light shooting out of my hands onto my knee or whatever. And I know that the healing is occurring. So again, he's using kind of a verbal, intentional approach. Other people have done other things. One time, a woman, she was one of the people who helped Stephen LaBerge with a number of things. She had out of control menstrual bleeding. The doctor told her that they were going to schedule her for a hysterectomy in a week if this didn't get under control. She became lucid. She had developed a plan, and here was her plan. She put healing energy into her dream hand. She was going to put her dream hand into her dream uterus and heal her uterus and take care of the issue. But here's what happened in the actual lucid dream. She's putting healing energy into her hand, healing energy into her hand. And suddenly, as she's getting ready to do her plan, her inner awareness tells her, first heal your heart.
Wow.
And she goes, oh. And so she puts her hand into her dream heart and heals her heart. And then she takes her hand out and puts it into her dream uterus. When she woke up, her her bleeding had stopped, and the doctor said, "Oh, no bleeding, no need for a hysterectomy. Call me if you have trouble." So, I think in my magazine there was someone who wrote an article. He was doing the healing, but what his lucid dream taught him was the wound behind the wound. And like this woman who was um, researcher along with LaBerge, she said that when she was a young woman, she was a teenager, her father passed away. And was this all connected? I don't know. But the dreaming intuition told her first heal your heart. So again, that's why there's a lot of different approaches, but you ought to figure out a plan in the waking state and go with that. Now, one thing that I'd encourage people not to do is what one woman did who wasn't successful. She becomes lucidly aware and she finds herself in the hospital because she'd been thinking, I want to heal myself of whatever ailment she had. I can't even remember what it was. So what does she do? She goes, finds the dream doctor, and she says, dream doctor, I'm here to be healed. You've got to heal me of this, this, and this. And he says, you always come at Friday at 5 o'clock when I'm getting ready to leave. And she goes, you're a doctor. You've got to heal me. You've got to heal me. And he goes, okay, I want you to start eating this food. And what does she do? She says, oh no, I can't eat that. It gives me gas. And so she totally ignores what he suggests. Then he walks out. She runs down the hallway. Oh, sees the nurse. Nurse, nurse, you've got to help me. You've got to help heal me. And the nurse says, okay, why don't you start to eat this? And she goes, oh, I can't do that. It doesn't agree with me. And it's like every time she was being offered help, her ego conscious self came to the forefront and she woke up with no difference. So again, how people approach this also is a function of their beliefs. If some people have Christian beliefs, some people have Buddhist beliefs, some people have Islamic beliefs, some people have shamanic beliefs. They need a power animal to appear, and the eagle, will take their bad liver and bring them a new liver, whatever. You've got to work with your own beliefs. Everybody's different and unique, but it helps to have a positive belief also in your own ability to do it. If you believe that only a doctor can do it, like that woman apparently believed, then you will hammer away at the medical establishment or the representations, the nurses and doctors. But if you believe that, wait a second, I'm consciously aware in a dream state, I'm at a much deeper level of my psyche. If it's true, like the Buddhist dream yoga people say, that an action performed at that level is like 7 to 9 times more powerful than one performed at the waking level, then maybe I can make a huge difference here. But you have to be thoughtful and respond in that moment. But first, make a plan. When you become lucid, stabilize the lucid dream. Ask yourself, what was it that I really wanted to do? Instead of play around with these dream figures and go fly around and have fun. Oh, I wanted to heal my whatever. And then try to enact your plan, whatever it is. Now, as you enact your plan, things might suddenly change. You might hear a voice, things might change around. you, you've got to respond. You've got to respond in whatever way possible. So anyway, that's what I suggest to people as they go into the lucid dream realm, and see what happens from there. But again, it's all predicated on beliefs, expectation, focus, intent, will, emotions, and also an understanding that an inner awareness exists.
Thank you for that. That's very valuable to me, and I hope I'm sure I will succeed one day with lucid dreaming to heal myself.
You know, I want to tell you a story, and I'm not giving what I like is experiences. I like
Mm,
experiences. We're in a realm where individual experiences happen.
right.
But in my magazine, the Lucid Dreaming Experience, uh, a number of years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, I got this email from this guy. His name is Jose. He lives in Florida. He gave his whole name and all. I interviewed him later for the magazine, The Lucid Dreaming Experience. But what he told me was he had a traumatic brain injury about 5 years earlier. And what was horrible about this is he didn't have any medical insurance. And here in the States, if you don't have a medical insurance, you're just like, you're in a horrible state. Anyway, the doctors told him, they go, look, you've had this traumatic brain injury thing. You're going to die, chances are, within 1 year, and all these symptoms you're having. He said it was like there's this hot knife going through his brain. It says there's like lightning going across his brain hemispheres. He would see things, obverse what was actually on the left was on his visual right. He said he was totally messed up. He said he would have moments that were just really so painful and all. So anyway, he he came out of the doctor's office and thought, "What should I do?" He had some intuition that he should read up on lucid dreaming. I don't know if he'd even had a lucid dream before then. Thankfully, he bought my book, was one of the 2 books. I think he bought 2 or 3 books he bought, and I have the chapter on healing in lucid dreams, and a lot of it's based upon, the investigation of my friend Ed Kellogg, who had a PhD in biochemistry and was really interested in using altered states for healing. Anyway, this guy reads the book, he understands all the principles, he makes a plan, and he said he had this lucid dream experience, and people can go into the magazine and read it. But after the experience, he said it was like someone had hit a reset button that restored his brain operation to normal.
Wow.
And so he was writing me 5 years after the lucid dream just to tell me that during that time, he'd gotten a full-time job, he'd gotten married, he had a wife and a car and paid taxes and did all those things, even though, 6 years earlier, the doctor told him, "You're gonna die, and there's nothing I can do about it, and you're in a hopeless situation." So so again, I don't want to give people false hope, and that's not my intent. But I think if people understand the principles and all, then they can see how some pretty dramatic things can happen in a lucid dream. Um, Now, with all that said, I do want to bring up the work of my friend Ed Kellogg because he really investigated this in lucid dreams. One thing he said, there's 3 types of healing experiences that he had noticed in lucid dreams. First was the direct curative dreaming, which is lucid dreaming, which is what I've been talking about. But he also said sometimes he's seen that there were prescriptive lucid dreams, where sometimes in a lucid dream, he or the person would be shown a prescription of what they needed to do. Like, stop doing this in your waking life. Instead, do this. You know, stop eating these foods, instead eat these foods. Stop doing these actions, instead do these actions. So sometimes you'd get a prescription. It had even gotten to the point, there's examples of lucid dreamers who have been told, you need to go to this doctor at this hospital. And they're thinking like, "Wait a second, that's 50 miles away. I've never even been to that city." But they're told the name of the actual doctor and and the thing, and they wake up and Google search it, and darned if there isn't a doctor by that name who deals in the specialty of their whatever. So there's curative dreams, there's prescriptive dreams. Then also there's in Ed's exploration, he says there's also diagnostic dreams.
Mm.
Sometimes people have two illnesses at the same time. And so the doctors can't figure out what the deal is because they have all these weird symptoms. And so sometimes in lucid dreams, people have received that, oh, you have two illnesses. Not only do you have X, but you also have Y. And that's why you have these weird things. And so then once they understood that, then they could get uh, uh, more appropriate medical help. And that assumes that they weren't going to deal with it in the lucid dream state. So again, it's a fascinating field and very curious. But I would say almost monthly I get reports from people who have healed issues, and it's really fantastic. Um, but I'll leave it there, and then I'll talk about how you can also do what I call lucid living healing that doesn't even require lucidity, being lucidly aware in a dream. So anyway, that thanks for letting me go on there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just talk. I mean, I'm just so grateful that you're here, and whatever you say, I just gracefully receive it, and it's just such a blessing. Please, yeah, I don't even want to interrupt you, and just because I think it's such a gift that a map maker like you shares their experience, knowledge, intuition. It helps us a lot, and it's I really believe that people, everyone that has a heart and a brain, we are all magicians in sleep. I was telling this to a friend yesterday, and that resonated with her. And because we are, and we only need people like you to show us the way, and it clicks. Something just clicks. Maybe they listen to it later in their life or whatever, and it's just such a blessing.
Yeah,
Uh,
I I'll tell you one of my most, dramatic, stories. I was invited down to Bogota, Colombia, to give, a weekend workshop on lucid dreaming, and, so I'm there in this big hotel, and I don't know, there's 100 or whatever people in the audience, and it's all being translated through a Spanish translator and all. But anyway, in the very first row was this one woman, and she was probably 35 years old, and she asked excellent questions. So I knew that she was already pretty far along the lucid dreaming path. But here was the strange thing about this woman. Sometimes you meet people and you can just see in their face that there's a lot of pain, that something's happened in their life that has brought them a lot of pain. And you can just see it. I mean, it's etched in their face. It's just, and you don't know what it is, but you can just see the pain. So she was one of those people. She had all this pain, and also kind of around her was kind of this kind of gloominess. Anyway, so the event gets over, and 6 months later they have me come back to Bogota, Colombia, to give another workshop. And I'm there watching people come in, and suddenly this woman comes in, the same woman from the first conference, but this time she looked totally transformed. And I would say 70 or 80% of the pain was gone from her face. And so the pain was gone. She looked younger and taller and more attractive and all that kind of fun stuff. Anyway, I ran up to her and I said, "What happened to you?" And she looked at me and she told me that she had never thought about emotional healing before in the lucid dream state. She said conceptually this idea of healing had never occurred to her. So when she heard me the first time talk about it and how you needed to develop a plan in the waking state and then enact it in the lucid dream state, she said that's what she did. She went home, she realized she had this emotional trauma. She decided she's going to heal it and how she was going to go about healing it. And she said she had a lucid dream and the healing occurred. She said she woke up from the lucid dream just feeling ecstatic. Just she said she felt like a different person. She said, "It was simply amazing what happened because of one lucid dream." And before we stopped talking, she said, "But there's one thing I want to tell you, Robert." And I go, "What's that?" She goes, "Even though I've had the healing and all the pain is gone, I can still remember the events, but now there's no pain associated with them."
Amazing.
And so I don't know what happened in her life. I don't want to pry. I don't want to ask. It doesn't even matter in the whole big scheme of things. But but she said, I can remember the events, but now there's no pain. Now there's no guilt or suffering or recrimination or anxiety or anything. She says it's just all gone. So so the thing of healing not only is about physical healing, but also sometimes it's about emotional healing or psychological healing. I I even had an example of one time I healed a relationship with a person in a lucid dream, and the results were utterly dramatic. So 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 what I'm kind of learning by interacting in lucid dreams is when you're at that deep level of the psyche, you can make sudden, profound changes. But you've got to understand the principles of how to go about it, and you've got to approach it in a thoughtful, intelligent manner. I've seen people do extraordinary things, just profound life changes because of one or two lucid dreams. Sometimes people, it's like they crack the egg in the first lucid dream, and then in the second lucid dream, oh, that's when they uh, do the deed. A lot of times because they're not ready the first lucid dream, they haven't really thought through their plan. And so it takes them two or more lucid dreams to do it. But anyway, the fact that people are able to do it is the important thing, and
Yeah.
all.
And I
So
think, did you said what lucid living is? Like,
yeah, so I haven't said what lucid living is. So imagine that you've started to have 5 or 6 or 700 lucid dreams. You start to see, oh, I see how the unconscious mind works and how the dream world works and how if I believe I can fly through that wall, I can fly through it. If I believe it's going to be hard or expect it to be difficult, then I'll bounce off the wall, even though it's made out of dream stuff. You begin to see how all these mental principles work. And then you also have the inner awareness as well. So, so when you see that, then you can transfer it to the waking world and begin to make changes without even being aware in the lucid dream, because I think all these levels of experience work on the same principles. So I just finished writing my first book, and I was outside in the garden. It was June, and I was thinking, oh God, here in a couple months it'll be August and September, and I'll get hay fever, and I hate hay fever. My sinuses get all engorged and I can barely breathe and my throat starts to constrict and I just hate August and September because of hay fever. Then this little voice inside my head said, "You just wrote a book on lucid dreaming and healing in the lucid dream. Have you thought that maybe you could resolve this?" And I thought, "Oh, that's interesting." And then I thought, you know, I could do it in a lucid dream, but I'm going to do it in the waking state to show people that you don't even have to be a lucid dreamer to do this. And so here was my lucid living healing process. Every time I thought about hay fever or began to fear August and September, first I mindfully became aware. So you got to mindfully become aware of your thinking. And whenever hay fever or August, September shows up, you got to mindfully notice it. Then I had to stop my normal thinking, which was fear and concern. I had to say, nope, not anymore. Then the third thing was the most important thing. I had to tell my unconscious what I wanted to experience. And so I really had to think, what is it that I really want here? And I thought, oh, I just want to breathe easily and naturally. So every time TV commercial, hay fever season's coming, go buy this drug, I think, whoop, mindfully notice it. Nope, not anymore. From now on, I breathe easily and naturally. And so throughout the day, whenever the concern about hay fever would come out, mindfully notice, no, not anymore. From now on, I breathe easily and naturally. I'd say the first August, September, I had a 70% reduction in symptoms. The next year, I had a 90% reduction in symptoms. The next year, I had a 95% reduction. And then after that, I just didn't even have hay fever anymore. I
Wow.
breathe easily and naturally. And so I've talked to people who have used this same technique to change their experience. And so that's kind of what I want to get to people is we kind of hypnotize ourselves in the waking world to accept things like allergies and hay fevers. Oh, I'm allergic to dogs. Oh, I'm allergic to this or whatever. Anyway, you can use lucid living if you're mindful enough and pay attention to your thinking to change the script, to change your beliefs and expectations and all. Now, the important thing is a lot of people just think you have to say, no, not anymore and stop it. But then you haven't told the unconscious where you want it to go. It's like getting into an Uber and not telling the driver where you want to go. You don't
Mm.
go anywhere. You've got to know where you want to go. And that was the thing. I had to boil it down. What do I want to experience? You can't say, oh, I don't want to experience hay fever. That's not telling. It's like getting into an Uber. I don't want to be here. Where do you want to go? I don't want to be here. Where do you want to go? Don't want to be here. It's just it's just not how it works. You've got to tell the unconscious where you want to go. You have to have a goal, a destination, a focus, an intent. You have to have the intent specified. So, but it's nice to hear back from people who say, "Oh yeah, I'm doing this and it's working," and thank you for bringing up this lucid living thing because again, lucid dreaming is you begin to explore how the mind works. And once you see that, then you can bring it into the waking world and use those same principles in the waking world and have much the same results. It's a little bit different in the waking world because you're topside, you're not down deep, but still the same principles apply.
Thank you very much for that. I think I will practice lucid living more intensely now. It's amazing how, the practice of like how awareness, just a simple awareness, just manifests in some physical, emotional, like social healing. It's just fascinating. Like lucid dreaming is like the sport of awareness. It's amazing. And,
Like
and
like
yes,
like here would be an example. So all of us have a subconscious, and we all have an unconscious, and it's like this famous hypnotherapist Milton Erickson said that the unconscious is always listening. But but you could subconsciously suggest that today, while I go about my normal stuff, my inner self, my unconscious mind, will will create a system within myself for my total complete healing. So today, while I'm going around my doing my whatever, my inner self, my unconscious mind is working to craft a plan to allow for healing. And and you know, by just doing that, it's kind of like you acknowledge that an unconscious or a subconscious exists, and now you're putting them to work during the day while you're consciously focused on this your subconscious doesn't die, it's still there. And so as long as it's there, you might as well put it to some good use, to and it can also be the same like oh yeah, tomorrow I got to go meet my boyfriend's parents. Okay, subconscious, today while I'm doing my work, you figure out the best way for me to respond and react when I meet my boyfriend's parents so I don't feel any anxiety or concern and have a nice meeting. And suddenly the next day you go meet the boyfriend's parents and, "Oh, God, it went so smoothly," and, "Oh, I can't believe you brought up XYZ because my mom loves XYZ, and now my mom thinks you're the greatest girlfriend I've ever had." Whatever it is. If we learn how to use our subconscious and unconscious, then we'll be the beneficiaries of it. But the sad thing is that Western psychology largely ignores the unconscious and subconscious and kind of, oftentimes puts us in the role of 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 not using it, just not even thinking about it, so
yeah, and thank you for changing that. I think as a scientist myself, I you definitely change how I see that, and it's fascinating when you said like program your subconscious as you go about your day. Uh, don't laugh at this thought, but I always think that maybe subconscious is like AI and we are prompting it. Like you You said, like, even in a lucid dream, don't you get a sense, like, with AI, you prompt it and doesn't give back what you want, and you have to, like, continue interacting with it. In lucid dreaming, it's like that. When you say something, it gives you some one thing, but it's not clear. You have to prompt it again. And even when you talk about subconscious, like when you do it, when you, for example, set an agent, AI agent, and you tell it, do this and this and this, and you yourself go do other thing. It's like, what do you think? What do you think? Like, with AI, we kind of understand our subconscious, kind of like we are similar. What do you think about that?
Right. No, no, it's in some ways it's a lovely analogy or metaphor there. It is interesting though that about when lucid dreaming started was also when these ideas of virtual realities and all started to emerge. And it's kind of interesting for us lucid dreamers. I mean, there's some of us lucid dreamers who just find lucid dreaming so fascinating that we would almost prefer that reality. We would if we were given a choice, which reality, waking or lucid dreaming, we'd almost say, "I'll sign up for the lucid dreaming because that is so cool and so amazing
The
and
magical
so
world.
so magical and everything." And sometimes by comparison, waking seems shut down. But you're right. I think along with this evolution, as we kind of explore the nature of consciousness, also lucid dreamers are beginning to explore like the nature of the inner self or the responsive inner awareness, whatever you want to call it. And so it's kind of like it's blossoming all over. I guess I'll put it like that.
Yeah, I'm one of those AI optimist people who really think that I don't know about other fields, but I think in the field of consciousness, it will really help us make breakthroughs. Like, just decoding the patterns of the brain, and kind of connecting those with experiences and the maps, people like you, like elders in the field, have made. It's just going to be an interesting era, like interesting years to come with all of this. I'm so excited uh, to explore all of this, and to share it, and it's so motivating.
Excellent.
Uh, Times like this makes me thank this trauma actually happened to me, because I wouldn't be interested in so much cool stuff. You actually get to be like, you like, in my generation, we read a lot of Harry Potter and stuff like that. We always dreamed about, oh, can we be actually magicians? And in lucid dreaming, you can actually be a magician. And then you talk about lucid living, and I believe that we can be magicians in real life as well. Uh,
Exactly. Well, good, good, good. What else should we talk about? Yeah. What other
oh,
questions
like
you?
the fu- I've now I'm going to go to the fun stuff. The afterlife.
Okay. Oh,
Oh, I think that's kind of the trend these days. I see a lot of people make podcasts about this. It gets me thinking. I'll just get it. Oh, okay, here. Oh yeah, let's start with this one. Have you are you have you looked into Monroe's Loosh concept, and have you ever asked your dream if about it? Uh, uh, it's around the concept of like a soul trap. Like, we humans are trapped in Earth. There's some alien intelligence keeping people soul trapped, using memory wipe and reincarnation. And like, as I was as I as it's a topic that really is in the internet nowadays. I come across it a
okay.
lot. And then I also am familiar with yoga, dream yoga, yoga nidra, and those Buddhist traditions also talk about this kind of like as a lucid dreaming, preparing for death. When I was first, before I got exposed to this Lush idea, I was like, like when they said, like, when the Buddhism says, like, you need to do lucid dreaming to prepare for death. I was like, that's so pointless. Why won't I use lucid dreaming just to live a good life? Why would I want to prepare for death? Because if you think about the life of a soul, it's like alive for a couple of years and it's dead most of the time. So why I spend like a few years that I have just to prepare for death? But then when I when I got into the concept of Loosh and soul trap and all of that, I got, oh, maybe that makes sense. Maybe that's why I have to prepare for death, to kind of escape from the prison of reincarnation. I would love to know where you stand on it, or what are your thoughts, or whatever.
Well, one thing that was interesting for me, um, so when I was growing up, I was just a kid who really paid attention to my dreams, and on occasion I'd have like precognitive dreams, like in the dream state, someone would say something really strange, and then 5 hours later, while when I was awake and on the playground with my friends, one of my friends would say that exact same set of weird words together, and that's when I realized, oh my god, on occasion I have precognitive dreams. But I really began to pay attention. So one thing that was really bizarre, because I grew up in kind of a in the middle of America, in Kansas, in the very center of America. And one of the things that was really bizarre, I just grew up in a kind of normal Christian home, and 2 out of 3 Sundays, my parents and my brothers and sister and I would go to church and just kinda learn the traditional, kind of Protestant, church view. Anyway, in my teenage years, I began to have what I now see were reincarnational dreams. I would be looking through the eyes of a past life self, seeing things from their experience, and, all the time aware that I, Robert, am looking through their eyes. And I began to realize that I think my inner awareness was trying to teach me that standard Christian view of just one life was incorrect. There's more going on here, that we have more lives than one. And so all of a sudden things began to make sense. I would think when I was a teenager, how could you be like a little 3-year-old child and die, and then you go to heaven or hell for eternity? How does that make sense? That just doesn't make any sense at all. That's just like crazy. But when I started realizing, oh, I think we actually have incarnations, and this is one life, one opportunity, and all. Um, Probably over the years, I've discovered about 25 past life aspects. I even spent about 9 months in all my lucid dreamings trying to find past life aspects of myself. What's interesting about it, some of them you can actually verify. You can wake with the information that nobody knows. Like in one, I was seeing an ancient language that was hammered onto these silver plates. And when I woke up, I thought, okay, was that Sanskrit? Nope. Was that Pali? Nope. Was that this? Was nope, nope, nope. Finally, I came to an ancient language that was used by traders between India and China from the third to sixth century. And there is this museum that had a papyrus scrap of that language that I had seen while looking through the eyes of another individual. And basically, I was lucidly aware because I'd had the experience happen enough. So anyway, you could validate some things, but but to your question, are some people confused when they die? Yes, some people are confused when they die. One time, I found myself on a business trip. I was out in Michigan, out in Detroit, and I talked to my wife that night, and my wife said, "Oh, that one of her colleagues' spouse had passed away, and they're going to have the funeral on Friday." And I thought, "Oh, well, I won't be back in time to go to the funeral." I know that's so bad. Anyway, that night I fall asleep, and coming up the stairway, I see the deceased woman and my wife's friend, the spouse. And I become lucidly aware because I know the deceased woman just passed away. And I go up to her and I say, Dahlia, I'm so sorry to hear about your passing, and I just want you to know that I won't be able to attend your funeral." And she looks at her husband, "My funeral?" And they go running down the stair together. So again, she had just been dead, 48 hours or whatever. And I still think a lot of people at that time, they're just not aware they're dead. They're in this kind of weird dream experience, but they're with their husbands, so they figure, oh, everything's okay, and they're climbing upstairs and doing whatever, and oh, everything's okay. But but I was silly enough to inform her that she was in fact dead, and she ran down the stair with her husband. Anyway, so do people get confused? Sure, people get confused. Do they eventually work their way out of it? I think they do. Here's how my friend Ed Kellogg rationally explored this. So he would occasionally have an acquaintance who would pass away. And then he'd wait 3 or 4 months. And in a lucid dream, he would intend to find the acquaintance who had passed away. And sometimes there'd be a guide who would take him to the person, and then he'd interact with the person. But here was the strange thing. Normally, the person didn't look like the 85-year-old man they were when they died. They looked like they were 25 years old, and their hair was different, and they're surrounded by things that apparently were their hobbies, and they wanted to talk about this, that, or the other. And so Ed would wake up lucidly aware. He'd write down all the things he learned about the person. Then he'd ask the family, say, last night I had a lucid dream where I interacted with your father. Would you like me to come and share with you what I learned? And so Ed would meet the family, and the family would start laughing when Ed would tell his story because they'd say, "Oh, you didn't know him when he was 25, but when he was 25, he had this giant afro. And oh, you didn't know him when he was that age. Oh, he'd always wear sunglasses and this blah, blah, blah." All these things that Ed reported. And, oh, you didn't know this, but he had an interest in brass telescopes because he used to work on a submarine. And all these things that Ed learned in the lucid dream, the family could verify as
Wow.
actual. So I think just to bring up this issue of the deceased, that in some lucid dreams we interact with the deceased as they are in a different state of existence, and through Ed's work, you could see how you could do scientific experiments in this area. But again, you'd have to work with really talented lucid dreamers and all that kind of stuff. Um, but in any case, it's definitely seems like that happens. That in some lucid dreams we interact with the deceased.
Yes, I was listening to, I don't remember exactly. So I was like listening to this astral projector who was saying that he met souls that just died but didn't know that they were dead, and they were so confused, like they were in a dream. And yeah, so I thought, yeah, if that's the case, then lucid dreaming is really of existential importance, like being able to, once you're dead, just being able to be aware. It's really a sport of awareness. I think people should really seriously care about lucid dreaming. It's like that awareness is required. When we die after the physical world, we need that to make conscious decision. At least, I don't know, to see through whatever is there. Uh, I think it's so
Right.
important.
It's interesting. I'd mentioned the lucid dreamer Kareem from the Middle East, and in the Middle East they have this name for the angel of death. It's Azrael,
Mhm.
and so he began to meet Azrael, and he'd become lucidly aware. And oftentimes, Azrael, instead of really being a mean person or something, Azrael just was an angel who had a function to do, and that was to keep the death processing going, so that new lives could be born on Earth and everything continue. But anyway, in one of the lucid dreams that he sent into our magazine, The Lucid Dreaming Experience, Azrael asked him, "Would you like to see the 7 tests that you will have to pass if you don't want to be reborn again in physical life?" And so Kareem says, "Sure, show me the 7 tests." And it was so fascinating. Like, I think the first test, Azrael takes him into this kind of conference room, and they're over at one table, all of Kareem's friends, and they're all shouting at him, "Kareem, come and join us. We're having the most incredible food ever. You'll love this." And Azrael looked at him and said, "When you die, if you go towards that kind of, family connections, friend connections, living experience. If you get focused on that, then you'll return to another life
Oh,
because that's the first test." And then he went through this series of 7 tests that,
oh.
if you get focused on money and material gains and kind of that sense of hoarding or wanting and all, that'll drag you back into another life. And he showed him all these tests. And so that's the beautiful thing about lucid dreaming. In a lucid dream, we begin to realize that sometimes those figures are symbolic representations of whatever wealth or familial family connections or relationships or whatever it is. That's what they represent. And so when you die, if you get sucked back into that, there you go off into another life.
Mm.
But you can proceed and avoid this if you want to. Again, there's some really deep teachings in lucid dreaming, but um, it it really helps. Not every lucid dream is a wonderful teaching. Some of them are just our stupid thoughts being played out in a lucid dream, and so they're not wonderful teachings. But sometimes in some lucid dreams, we do receive just very important teachings.
That's fascinating. I really think lucid dreaming is like the mission. It should be in my understanding the mission of every human being to find the magician in them again, bring that to the world, and find immortality in whatever form.
Well,
And yeah.
I agree with you in some sense, but I think the one thing that lucid dreaming could really help is expanding the sense of self. When
Hmm.
you begin to realize that you have an inner awareness and that this inner awareness um, has is connected to you, but also has a greater sense of creativity. Sometimes it has foreknowing. Sometimes it has thoughts that are beyond the conscious self's awareness. You begin to expand what is this thing, the self. And if we had really truly an expanded understanding of this thing called the self, then we'd live in a much better society, a much more thoughtful society,
Hmm.
and a much more caring society because we would connect with our inner self more and realize its value in helping us achieve what it is we need to achieve.
Yes, thank you for that wonderful message. I really think we need it in the today. We really need that. And I think lucid dreaming, just talking to you, it's just get me so excited, energized, so motivated. I'm so happy to be alive at this time. And so grateful that you exist in our generation. And uh really, do you have what's your next project? Like, do you have a lucid dreaming plan you're working on? Is there an experiment? Maybe is there a book
Yeah.
that you're thinking about writing?
Yeah.
What are you planning?
You know, I, I want to write a third book. And
Yay.
and kind of expanding some of these ideas we've been talking about. In my first book was supposed to be a chapter on interacting with past life selves and lucid dreams, but my editor told me that that morning she had heard on public radio that only 1 in 4 Americans believed in past lives, and she said, and also your book is getting too long, so we're just going to toss out that chapter and all. And so so in my third book, it would be kind of beginning to explore the further reaches of the self, um, and because I think there's a lot more there that people need to understand about the actual nature of the self. And I'm not telling people what to believe, but I am suggesting to them what they can explore on their own. And so I'm not here to proselytize or everyone should believe as I believe. It's like you go explore it for yourself, and I think you'll find much what I've found and what other lucid dreamers in other centuries have found, that there's more going on here than just playing around with dream figures and having fun.
Yeah, I think really like part of what happened to me was like a blessing in disguise because otherwise I wouldn't think about the bigger picture that you're talking about. I would be very excited about that book. I think people like you who really go and touch it, so experimental, like touching it's not theory, but like it's like observation, it's a data point. It's magnificent. I'm definitely have a lot of work to do to just stabilize my lucid dreams. So when people like you, I have enough experience to know that you're legit, like legit map maker. So it's like and also motivation for me to just train myself to train my awareness and lucidity. And you're not just lucky we live in a generation that people like you have already mapped a lot of it, and that's such a huge blessing. I think I asked all not all, but I had a lot of like bits and pieces here there, but I realized that I made you a bit tired. it's, it's been 2 hours, but I think uh, I just want to close that with your book, Gateway into Inner Awareness. It's a fascinating book. It's on its 16th edition. It's like literally a classic in the field, something that I will go back to many times in my journey. And I'm just so grateful for you, for your work, for your openness to share your ideas and connect with people. It's such a rare and privilege and just a blessing. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.